Are you in a cult? You might not know it. What we're going to be talking about today is how to recognize cult influences and how to get yourself free from them. It's an interesting discussion. I'd love to hear your comments. Okay, here we are. Well, welcome once again to another Friday discussion group. During this, the topic is interesting. It's about how to uncult yourself. And I've taken some notes, so I hope it's not too obvious I'm reading from some of them, but I think it's important and we do it well. If anyone has questions or observations, please just raise your hand through the little icon or wave at me and I'll do that. If you would, for this moment, unmute yourselves or mute yourselves rather. And I also want to welcome Toby Marshall. He and I had a recent discussion here. He was involved in the Rajneesh cult back in the 80s. And so he and I shared some good information. I will be having a one-on-one interview with him that I'm going to publish as well. So Toby, again, thank you so much for being part here.
Well, no, thank you for all you do.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right. So let's go ahead and start. The whole purpose here is to start to recognize in yourself what I consider cult influences. Now, that doesn't mean that you are in a religious cult of any sort, but it does mean that you're being influenced, probably. I always like to point out that as human beings, we have not changed our software, our hardware in our mind. So over the last 50,000 years, we are working off the same hardware that's been running since we were hunter-gatherers. So the result is we haven't been able to install an antivirus software for influence. And I think one of the best ways to consider this is consider a very uncomfortable truth. And if some of this makes you uncomfortable, be aware of it and it may happen. The uncomfortable truth is we're all susceptible to this type of influence. And the most susceptible person is the one who believes they're immune to it. And we all have had conversations with people who would say, I would never fall for that crap. Okay. Well, they're sincere and they're kind and they're probably well-meaning, but they're likely very wrong. So the belief that you're immune makes you even more vulnerable to this type of influence. And so where I want to start is just from what's called the B.I.T.E model. This was developed by Stephen Hassan. The B.I.T E model, B-I-T-E, it's levels of control that happens within cult influence. And again, keep in mind, when I say a cult influence, I don't necessarily mean you're in a organization that specifically is designed to influence you, but you're in some sort of system, perhaps, and we'll get clear on that, that is designed to influence you. So the B.I.T E model starts with behavior control. These are things that cults will tell you what to do. The I is information control. They tell you what information to consume and what information to not consume. The second level is the T, and it's the control of thoughts, what you're thinking, and what is good thoughts and what are bad thoughts. And the final is emotion control. So there are good feelings and there are bad feelings that you're supposed to experience when you're involved in these cults. So let's break it down. Behavior control. In cults, or at least systems that control, they have specific actions. Think of like, share, and comment, like, share, and subscribe. Specific actions that are there to reinforce what the cult wants you to do and what they want you to believe. This could be, you could ask a very critical question. Is one of the behaviors you have picking up your phone as soon as you wake up in the morning and then scrolling through Instagram? That could be something that is part of an influence campaign on you. Let's see, I think we have some more people here coming in. Hang on just a second. There we go. All right. So that's the behavior model, the behavior step of cult control. The second is information control. They create perfect echo chambers, systematically cutting you off from other dissenting sort of views. Ask yourself right now, what perspectives, they could be personal perspectives, they could be political, religious, or social perspectives, do you find that you're avoiding or you move away from? The next is T, the thought control. Influence organizations and groups, promote black and white content that fuels an us-them response. So for thought control, a common remedy in cults is called thought blocking. Sometimes it's a mantra. Sometimes it's a behavior. But when you notice this particular thought, you initiate this thing to stop it. And the last is emotion control. These organizations that try and influence you learn what triggers you have, which are often negative: anger, fear, and envy. And they tell you what you can feel, what's an appropriate feeling to certain situations and what is not. With emotions and the network you're in, they encourage various specific feelings in you. They are asking you to look at others and don't conform to their beliefs or even examine their beliefs because they're outside of the influence of control. And so you can ask yourself a couple of different questions. Do you feel anger or contempt with people or thoughts or ideas that are significantly different from your belief? Do you look at them as though they were ignorant or misinformed? So it's a good question to sort of bring yourself to. Consider for a moment the algorithms that sort of run our social media life. The algorithm is designed to reflect your vulnerabilities back to you and remind you that maybe, just maybe, you could do better if you follow along. A good example I noticed today, I like to watch YouTube. I watched 4 specific videos. They were chosen on my feed and I clicked on them individually, but they all held within them a very interesting sort of theme. The first was on toxic people and how they try and influence you. The second was talking about the Epstein files. So think about that in a big picture. The third was a description of the movie Sicario, which is a great movie. But this video was about how it displayed certain themes. And the fourth was about a World War II weapon that was designed for people who were in interrogation. Now, it took me a while. I sort of stepped back and I said, okay, what do all of these have in common? And that I even thought of this, I give myself credit for because I wouldn't have considered it. But what they all have in common is they objectify people. Think about it. Toxic people have a theme beneath them that they objectify people and control them. Epstein file is all about people in power who are objectifying and using others. And Sicario, even though this is a movie commentary, the movie itself is about influencing people and objectifying them. And the last was about a weapon that was used to help people when they're caught and in bad influence. And that, again, you're having an us-them environment. Now, all of these I chose, but somehow the algorithm, I'm guessing, is smart enough to know these have a theme beneath them. So I want you to take a moment, and if you scroll social media, if you just look at your news feed, or if you go to Google history or YouTube history, look at the ones you've clicked and determine, is there a subtle theme in each of these? So let's start talking about the kind of antivirus software that you can install. First, in behavior control, you have to ask yourself some clear questions. What automatic behaviors could you be involved in and that you could start to disrupt? I do think it is a very good policy to not look at news feeds or social media first thing in the morning. I used to do that. I found myself getting incredibly angry. And then I realized, okay, I think I am aging out of social media, and I don't go on Facebook except for business reasons and sometimes to connect with people. I also have, I'll show you this app I installed on my phone. It's called the Minimalist Phone. This is what it looks like. It has no icons on it, and it has listed only the various apps on it that I most use. I can get other apps. So I have a list of all the other apps, but I have to go through at least an effort of a thumb swipe to find any of those apps. There is also, uh, on my phone, there's a software called Digital Wellbeing. And you can limit your time on various apps, and it'll pop up and say, up, you spent your time here. And that's also very useful. As far as information control, one of the best ways to become aware of information control is to introduce yourself to ideas and to people that are contrary to your personal beliefs. One of the best solutions is to intentionally engage in a curious and sincere conversation with someone you don't agree with. And your purpose is not, I repeat, not to influence them. Your purpose is to understand them. So in that case, you ask sincere questions with curiosity, and you just try to get inside their head. Regarding thought control, ask yourself, what beliefs do you hold very strongly? What life experience might lead a reasonable person to hold an opposite view? And then emotion control. Ask yourself what you're feeling. I mean, years ago, during the first of the Trump presidency, I found myself getting incredibly angry and thinking incredibly uncomfortable and violent thoughts. And I realized this is not the kind of human being I want to be. And that was when I decided that social media wasn't really working for me. So let's take a moment and ask yourself, and if you want to do this through discussion, I welcome it. Raise your hand or let me know you want to talk. Ask yourself, if you succeeded in unculting yourself, in this case, what would you lose? Now consider, it could be a community of people. It could be a sense of identity and who you are. It could be a sense of purpose, perhaps. Ask yourself, what do you distinguish between healthy belonging and cult conformity? And then ask yourself, can you examine one of your own cults? This could be a group. This could be a group that holds a certain ideal. Realize that true freedom isn't living in paranoid isolation. It's choosing your bonds consciously while retaining sovereignty and to reevaluate what's right. Anyone have any comments, questions, observations? Okay. Alex, you're always welcome to comment. What's up? Oh, I cannot hear you for whatever reason. You're unmuted, but I can't hear your microphone. Okay, keep trying. We'll get back to you. Okay. Graham, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. When you say cult, so we're talking all sorts of groups where you've got shared beliefs and followings and thoughts and behaviors, or we're talking about the particularly nasty ones that you normally see on the evening news where they've gone and immolated themselves in a big fire sort of thing? Because using the B.I.T.E model, I was actually a cult member for 23 years.
In the military?
Yeah.
How did I know that? There are cults that have general goodwill toward their people. I mean, cults are always going to exploit labor, and the military is going to do that. But also, the good ones. Think of Harley Davidson Motorcycle Club. Definitely a cult. And my mom used to be a part of a Harley Davidson motorcycle club. So consider there are good cults. Ask yourself what are the benefits you get from it, and are the benefits you get from it lifelong? But also be aware of any of the detriments that come to it. Alex, can you unmute yourself? Maybe we can hear you now.
Let's see if this will work.
Yes,
come on.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. I was about to say that not all cults do that. That funny thing where everyone wears a big floofy white robe and goes around chanting and all that sort of stuff. A lot of them are extremely subtle, and it's almost like they do things, and it's almost like they make a game out of it.
Yeah.
So that you're doing. The cult leader says, well, I want this between this time and this time next week. You're going to come in and they'll tell you to do something. And the people who are members of the cult will actually go out and do something that is, it's almost totally against their ethics. But what drives them is something that I think that you're probably familiar with, the agentic state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right when you say they're subtle. I mean, we have very old hardware working in our mind, and effective cults, groups, organizations, or just think of them as systems, exploit this hardware that we have. I absolutely agree with you. So it is subtle, and that's why anyone is vulnerable to this stuff. The strongest antiviral software you can put in your head is just being aware of it.
Yeah.
And consider for a moment, awareness is the first, but not the last step. We've been running ancient hardware without an antivirus in a very sophisticated malware system. So begin installing your own antivirus software, your own protection. The work continues every time you pause for sharing, seeking out challenging perspectives, and asking sincere questions. One of the people I love and I follow on YouTube, his name is Morgan Gold, and he worked in corporate industry for a long time and collected some money and bought a farm. And he became live off the land type of person. Now he had a huge amount of income to support him, thank goodness. And he went to a group of people. I had a memory of what the name was, but a group of people who share their values, and they do homesteading, it's called. One of the speakers was apparently a very famous speaker, talked about living this homesteading lifestyle. And at a point in his speech, he talked about how important it is to find, and I'm going to use his words, like-minded Christian people that hold your same values to be in your system. Morgan, thankfully, is very mindful. And I will state that I think one of the better responses he had was, no, you have to have everyone within your network. You have to have the people that you don't agree with, and you have to look at them with loving kindness and know that you can connect with them. In the midst of any chaos, and you might argue yes or no that we're in a chaotic time, but in the midst of any chaos, the last thing you want to do is separate yourself from neighbors you disagree with. No, you want to be on their side, let them know that you're there to support them, and get them on your side as well, just for the purpose of connection and resource. Questions or comments? Yes, Toby, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay,
Yep.
so I just wanted to, I mean, I was in a pretty bad cult. The Rajneesh cult was ended up being quite a thing. But in these years, I've thought about it, and what occurs to me is that it's actually very hard to define a cult as such. What you end up with is any group that influences you, that you want to become a part of, that you're willing to overlook your own internal mechanisms for to be part of, you end up in the same situation as you do in a bad cult. Uh, I spent a lot of time in other places. I lived 30 years in Japan, and every time I moved from one culture to another, I realized how hypnotized I am by the culture, just by all kinds of micro relationships, micro gestures. You know, I say something and I see that somebody is taking a little offense, so I think, okay, I'd better moderate myself a little bit. And before long, you end up in a completely hypnotized, really a hypnotized state where you're trying to fit in and you're aware of everybody else. And it's so easy, I find it's so easy to lose oneself without even really knowing that you're doing it. I know that when I was with the Rajneesh, I remember leaving to go to visit my mother in California. And when I got out into the normal American society, it felt like, oh my God, these people are crazy. They're so hypnotized. And when I left the Rajneesh cult, I remember saying to myself, okay, listen, I've been pretty much deconditioned. I've lived in a completely different situation. I'm not going to allow myself. I mean, I grew up from my pre-verbal years as a to be part of this society. But now I'm aware and I don't have to do this anymore. But I swear that within a couple of months, I found myself sinking imperceptibly, moment by moment, into the same kind of patterns that I had had before I got into the call. So it's very difficult, I think, to stay aware when you really want to connect with people. And connecting with people often means that you are sacrificing something in yourself because you don't want to argue with them. You don't want them to take offense. You want to be in one big happy family, and
Yeah.
you lose yourself.
Yeah, let's talk about now the hardware we're running on is based on the fact that we grew up in small tribes of maybe 100 150 people,
Mm.
and we had to conform to stay alive. And if we didn't conform, we either didn't get to breed or we got ostracized or killed. And so that is the hardware that we're running on. So when you get within, again, I'm not going to say a group of people, I would say within a system that reinforces a particular behavior and you shout out and say something different, it affects us deeply. Who has ever gotten a comment on a post or a Facebook of someone who just ridiculed you for your stupidity? I mean, it hurts. So that's going to be the biggest influence. But again, one of the better ways to do this is to welcome those experiences. And those experiences, while they hurt in the moment, you have to realize they're also temporary, and you don't have to build up defenses against them. Use them to reinforce, who you are, your sense of self, and your own values. And where I really want to bring this is the major cult, and again, cult meaning a system, are the algorithms that move our digital life right now. If you watch the news that leans a particular political direction, at least occasionally go to the other side and hear their point of view. It's a valid point of view. These are sincere and caring people who believe something that you may not agree with or understand, but it's worth at least creating a sense of understanding. It may be uncomfortable and painful, but it's worth the experiment to do it. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, Jeremy.
David, good to see you.
It's a pleasure.
This is such a fascinating topic to me. And Toby, it's interesting to hear about your experience because I just published David and I's interview. Did a podcast interview and we were talking about the cult that you were a part of. And I joke around often. I'm like, if I grew up in the 80s, I'd be on the first bus out there.
I hear you.
And
Me too. I would have too.
yeah, yeah. Something that comes through for me, I've been a part of personal development cults, I would say. And it's like I feel like oftentimes these environments and these communities it's like the classic saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And the people that are in these communities, like we believe in some sort of inherent good, and like we want to see like love prevail, and then we get lost, and before we know, we're doing things that we wouldn't think we were doing, or like, I have no idea, but like I had a really bad falling out with this cult that I was a part of this past year, and I felt like I lost a part of my identity because I was basically outcast from the community when a leader of this cult uh, abused his power more or less, and then I got basically kicked out. And I'm like, holy shit! Like, it was a rough 2020. Beginning of 2025 was rough. It was like an identity shock to me. So it's so interesting when you get into the politics and the leadership of these organizations and um, yeah, it's interesting, like thinking about the deprogramming that we're talking about right now, and looking at the other side of the fence, and just like being open to the possibility that what I believe is maybe wrong or not wrong, but like there's another side, and we get to love them too, because the center theme of a lot of these cults are love, right? So I noticed in myself that through my personal development that I was actually driving a wedge in between my parents and myself. Like I'm like, if the center theme is love, then why do I resent them even more after being in these? That's a cult, right? So anyway, I wanted to share that this is
Yeah,
something that's really ripe for me right now.
excellent. But by the way, Jeremy, Toby, you guys, I will share your information. You guys need to speak.
Absolutely.
You have some great information to talk together with. All right.
Nice.
Anyone else? Okay. So I want you to just consider for a moment, take some time and use this mindfulness. Where are you being influenced? What are particularly the things that are telling you don't look curiously in this one direction? That's going to be one of the very biggest signs that you're under some sort of system of influence. Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to share, talk, have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I was ended up in an MLM recruiting session at one point about 15 years ago. Went in there with some previous knowledge of what cults were. I would not call them subtle in any way, but good Lord, was the love bombing effective.
Oh, yeah.
Finally got dragged out of there and realized I was recruited. Found it almost sort of cool. Twisted, but
yeah,
they were good. They were
yeah.
good.
Again, they are appealing to a hardware that you're programmed with it, which is being a member of something. If you're in a tribe that's there to protect you and care for you, every one of us respond very powerfully to that. So yeah, love bombing.
Chase Hughes is definitely correct. No firewall.
No firewall. That's correct.
A friend of mine who was there did have the firewall though and pulled me out, so that was effective.
Very
necessary.
Good. Thank you, Dwayne. Okay, Graham raised his hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, as Dwayne mentioned, Chase Hughes. If you have a look at some of his stuff that he does about the fate model, that pretty much gives reasons why people do get suckered into cults, and some of the things, as you were saying earlier, about getting turfed out of them for having, I think the current expression is a bit of wrong thing that they're using in today's parlance that they've hijacked from Orwell's 1984.
Yeah,
is actually worth possibly remembering that cult is actually the first syllable in culture as well.
Yeah, very true. Very accurate. Thank you, Graham. Anyone else have any questions, comments, or observations? This has been enlightening for me, and I love it. All right. Okay. I would love anyone who's watching this, I would certainly welcome your feedback and comments. This will be aired on YouTube, and I'll provide some links below. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. You took some time to be here. You sacrificed that time, and I deeply value, because you are not somewhere else, you're here. And that was an incredible, wonderful sacrifice. Thank you guys very much. One more time, Toby, go ahead.
Let me unmute myself. No, I just wanted to say that I think the really important point here is that we're all human beings. We all have valid points of view. And essentially we're a unity, and so you can't exclude people. At the end of the day, you can't exclude people, and it's so important. And I thank you for bringing that into the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, again, because you're here, you're not somewhere else, so you had to sacrifice to be here. Thank you for spending this time here. We will meet next week and have something equally as fascinating to talk about.